So here we go. We've only got about a week and a half left until marathon race day. I'm running the Sun Valley, Idaho Marathon on June 26th, 2021. And if you've been following along, I've been making these regular running vlogs for the past couple of months at least. And so I think I'm on video 9 or 10 at this point, and I can say that training has been going really well. And so today in this video, I actually want to cover three things. First, I want to cover what I've been doing training wise and how that's been going. And then two, we're going to look at my weight loss goal and where I'm at, and if I feasibly can achieve that weight loss goal. And then number three, what is my expected marathon finish time, and what's sort of the distribution or expectation that I can actually achieve that goal. So with that, let's first go ahead and look at my training and how that's been going over the last week and a half. So if we take a look at this lovely image here, this is where I keep track of my training, and it's got lots of grime on it from being in the kitchen apparently. But you can see the last couple of weeks that I've had some difficult runs. In particular, this one on this Thursday that I'll highlight was one that I would consider the most difficult training session of the entire training program. It was this 1 mile warm-up, 2 miles at 7:04, 2 miles a little bit faster, followed by 2 miles at 7:04, followed by 2 miles at 6:34 to 6:44. And that is all with no rest. And so that's the difficult thing. So if I could rest after each 2 mile sort of interval, that's really wouldn't be that difficult. I wish I could say that I did it perfectly, but after the 6 fast miles, I did have to take a short break before I finished the last couple of miles. But overall, I would say I did pretty well, considering a number of factors. I had to do it on a treadmill because it was hot that day, and my legs were just feeling a little sluggish that day, either because of the strength training I had been doing or just the miles accumulating over the time. So I'm going to cut myself a little bit slack. And then last weekend, or I guess 2 Saturdays ago, I did 22 miles. And that was really a dress rehearsal for the marathon. That was my last training run over 20 miles. And so I was sure to wear the shoes that I was going to wear on marathon day, bring the gels with me that I planned to fuel with, and really do everything in preparation for that race day. And I would say that that did pretty well, considering that my plan called for me to run between 7:34 and 8:34. If I pull up how I actually did on that run, I actually ended up at 22.3 miles just because I did a big loop and didn't judge it perfectly. And if I look at the lap details, you can see that definitely all of my laps are under the 7:34 to 8:34, right? So several right here in the mid 7:30s. But then I did, I turned directions, as you can see. Where did well, it's there. Why is that not showing up? Anyways, I changed directions and I sort of turned 90 degrees, and the wind suddenly was right in my face. And so that is the reason for the slowdown for a couple of miles. It was windy and it was definitely right in my face. But then I turned again and it got slightly easier. And I was able to finish, relatively strong after 22 miles. The best thing about it is after the 22 miles, I definitely felt like I could have gone another 4, right? I'm not going to necessarily say I could have done it like super fast, but I was not at the end of how far I could run. So that was good. Now let's just maybe take a look at 1 or 2 other runs that I've done. I did a lot on the treadmill, so I don't necessarily have a lot to share. I think I actually have a video of a treadmill run that I did. So what you're watching now and kind of in between is actually a run that I did this week. It was some 400-meter speed work. I would do 200 meters fast, then 200 meters slow. I actually did that just yesterday, and that went pretty well. So enjoy that for your viewing pleasure here on and off. So I did quite a few runs on the treadmill. But if I look at sort of my Garmin watch, I did this 9-mile run. And again, this one, it was supposed to be an interval run. And it was. But if I look at my plan here, it was supposed to be this pace run where I did 7 miles at a 7:04 pace. And it was windy. I didn't realize how windy it was until I turned around again. So these first, 4 miles, the wind was slightly at my back. And I was supposed to be at under a 7:04 pace, which I did. Then I immediately turned around and realized, I've got, I think it was 13, 14 mile an hour wind directly in my face. And so I slowed down. I felt terrible because this is supposed to be one of the last threshold runs that I do, and I should have just nailed it. It would have been a huge confidence booster, but it didn't happen. I was able to speed up a little bit that last mile, get 7:15. But again, I'll chalk it up to it was pretty warm that day, wind was in my face, and tired legs. I've got excuses for miles, right? But the reality is that my training actually has gone really well. And then my last long run that I did just on Saturday was a 16-mile long run. And again, it was just supposed to be a 7:34 to 8:34 pace, so anything under 8:34 was acceptable, and I definitely did that. I got, picked it up, I decided to go a little faster. You can see I'm clicking all the miles that were under that 7:34 pace, and even finished it off at a 7:05 mile. So I've got some pluses and minuses. I'm running great times, but not all of my runs were perfect. And that's just sometimes the way it goes in marathon training. The ideal training program, you nail everything. But again, I'm human, and that didn't always happen. So with that, let's next take a look at my weight loss. So I am currently at, as of this morning, 132 pounds. And to give you an idea of how dramatic a drop that is, if you look at this chart, you can see this. I started on March 7th at 150.2 pounds. It is now June 15th. I'm at 132 pounds. That's a weight loss of 18.2 pounds in a period of April, May, June, about 3 months. So I feel really great about that. My goal was to get to 130 pounds even. I don't think I'm going to quite make that. I've only got about a week and a half, and I'm starting to taper, so I'm running less mileage. So I may not quite hit that, but I'll give myself a pat on the back for losing over 18 pounds, possibly over 19 pounds by the time the marathon starts. And I am in very good race shape. I don't know what my body fat is, but it's probably like 10%, very close to that. So I am slim and trim and hopefully ready to race. So speaking of ready to race, I thought it would be interesting to get a look inside my mindset a little bit and how I'm thinking about the feasibility of my different finish times. And so the way I've been thinking about it is a normal distribution bell curve. So let me pull that up. So first, let's take a look at this, this bell curve. I don't know if this was taken from a specific race or they accumulated tons of data. I believe it was finish times of a particular race. You can just see that there is this distribution, this bell curve, right, where 70% are kind of within one standard deviation. And so if you do, I'm just sort of guessing here, right? But most people are finishing between a 3:30 and a 5:18, right? And so very few people finish faster than that or slower than that. Okay, that's just a normal distribution of runners. But if I think about a Spencer distribution curve in terms of, let me pull this up and see if I can explain it well. All right, so I've got a traditional bell curve here, and I changed the labels to fit my potential finishing times and my projected marathon time. And I'm thinking about this. If I were to run, let's say, 100 hypothetical marathons in a row, disregard recovery and ability to do that, but in an imaginary world, if on June 26th, 2021, I was able to run the Sun Valley, Idaho Marathon 100 times, right? This is probably the distribution of the finish times that I would have, because there's so many different factors that come into play, such as, I'll go into all of those, right? But fueling, sleep, the weather that day, just how good I'm feeling, right? Every time I run a marathon, there's going to be a different finish time. So even though I've trained really well and I weigh the same every time, and I've run the same amount of mileage, I probably, if I realistically look at where my finish times will be, if I look at one standard deviation, right? If I say the average, if I were to run this 100 times, the average is probably going to be about a 3-hour, 15-minute marathon finish time. That's just me being realistic. The Boston qualifying time for my age is 3:10, and I certainly want that. But I have to be realistic that there is about a 70% chance that I will fall somewhere between a 3-hour, 10-minute finish time and a 3-hour, 20-minute finish time. I don't want to think about that slow time, but I've run enough marathons to know that sometimes things happen. Maybe the weather is going to be really warm that day, and I'm running in 85-degree weather, and maybe there's things that happen, like they run out of water the last few aid stations, and I am just crawling to the finish line, right? I could finish over 3 hours and 20 minutes, right? And so if I go to 2 standard deviations, right, that's somewhere between a 3:05 and a 3:25, and then, it's highly unlikely that there's any option or there's any variables that could lead to me running faster than a 3-hour flat and slower than a 3-hour, 30-minute marathon. Although I will say, unless I get really injured, sprain my ankle, and have to spend an hour in a medical tent, then I could certainly finish slower than 3 hours and 30 minutes. That was a throwback to my Boston Marathon race where I did spend an hour in a medical tent. You can go watch video 1 to get that story if you'd like. So my goal, my true goal, is to get a 3:05. Now, when I look at this standard sort of deviation, I have to understand that the stars have to align perfectly. I have to fuel perfectly. I have to sleep well. I have to eat all the right foods leading up to the race. The weather needs to be perfect. And maybe even there needs to be a little bit of a wind at my back and other factors that I 100% realize that there's, only like there's a chance, but it's a small chance that I'm going to get a 3:05. And I don't say that to try and have excuses to not accomplish that, because I'm certainly going to pace myself for that and try to accomplish that. But I know who I am, and I sort of know where my standard deviation is in my training, in that I'm going to have to run a perfect race in order to get a 3:05. So that is my goal. My secondary goal is a 3:10, and even that is a little bit on the fast side. I'm going to have to, fuel well, hydrate well. The weather's going to have to be good, and all these other factors. Mentally, I'm just going to have to be there and run a really good race to get a 3:10, because my average. And again, this isn't my average of all my marathons times. This is just hypothetically on marathon day, thinking about what is feasible and possible. A lot of us don't think about the right-hand side of the bell curve and think, oh, there's no way I could be that much slower than my goal. But again, I've run enough marathons to know that yes, you can be 10, 15, or 20 minutes slower than your marathon goal because stuff happens in a marathon. And so I don't belittle anyone not hitting their marathon goal because the idea is to set a stretch goal that maybe is difficult to achieve, and if everything goes well, you hit that. And so 3:05 is that stretch goal that I hope to hit. And under 3:10 will still get me a Boston qualifying time, and I will feel good about that. Everything else beyond that, I won't say that I will feel great about, but I still know it's within the realm of feasibility. Overall, I'm excited about the race. I really am. I'm in good shape, and I think things are going to go well. I've put myself in a really good position. I'm way beyond where I thought I was going to be 16 weeks ago. Honestly, when I signed up for this race about 20 weeks ago, I almost signed up thinking, boy, I'm in such bad shape. I'll be happy to just kind of finish in a respectable time. But now I'm actually shooting for a Boston qualifying time. And for that, I'm really happy with the way my training has gone. Again, there's so many different factors that can come into play. I've still got minor little soreness and injuries that I'm trying to heal up, sort of minor heel pain, and just making sure my legs are well rested. And that's what this next week and a half is for. It's taper time. I'm only running about 31 miles this week. Although I will say that just because it's taper and running less miles, I'm not taking my foot off the gas pedal in terms of intensity. I'm still running really fast miles and at marathon pace, and I think that's important to keep my legs trained and in that racing mode. I'm just running less mileage. And so hopefully my body is going to heal up well over the next week and a half. I do plan on recording at least one more video before race day to kind of go over what my race day strategy is and final preparations for that. But other than that, I'm just really excited for the race, and I hope that you've enjoyed this video and seeing what I've been up to so far. Thanks again for watching.